We're live in the studio on CKLU for another edition of Creator Conversations. I'm your host, Jess, one of the co-founders of Our Creator, your local news outlet for the social Sudbury. Today we're interviewing Nico Glode. Nico is one of the muralists for Up Here Festival, which has helped us beautify our city's walls over the past 3 years. But another project Nico is hard at work out year-round is his installation projects. He's a big fan of guerrilla art, so you might find a few of his pieces hidden around. Nico creates giant scale versions of nostalgic items, so no, you are not trapped in a version of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. If you run into a big giant blockbuster video VHS case at the townhouse, a Zeller's bag in a parking lot, a giant scale Zeller's bag, or maybe even a humongous box of Sun-Maid raisins at the Sudbury Market, you definitely know who to blame. So we talked with Nico a bit more to get a feel for some of the different projects he's been working on and where all of these crazy ideas come from. So remember to follow Our Creator. You can find us if you look us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you can also look us up even on Snapchat to see what we're up to. And if you want to go straight to the source, you can always go to ourcreator.com. That's www.ourcrater.com. We're going to air right now our interview with Nico. CKLU Studios with Nico Glode. He is an installation artist and muralist, so you might have seen, well, you'll definitely have seen a lot of his work that he's collaborated on throughout the city for Up Here Festival, decorating all of our walls around the city. So Nico, maybe first off you can tell us a little bit more about how you first kind of became interested in pursuing art professionally.
It's like a background check.
Yeah, background check.
Yeah, I owe a lot to my brother with that stuff. Like, we grew up really into like graffiti and stuff, and that was because of him just being, delinquents and going to spray paint on buildings and stuff, and we really built an interest through that, which was great. He kind of, fostered my interest in the idea of street art and public art and graffiti. And then from there just kind of became this huge obsession, something I've obsessed over for well over a decade now. So just I would spend time doing my own projects and doing stuff like that. I did this one project called Basin, which was like an online art gallery supporting like local artists and stuff like that. And then Andrew Knapp caught wind of it and then asked me to help out with a mural, and that turned out to be the You Are Beautiful wall. So to have a hand in creating that was like the first realization that, something that I was really passionate about being public art, that I can actually do it here in town. So things kind of snowballed from there, and now it's just like being one of the mural coordinators for Up Here and painting walls, and now doing these installations that have gotten a lot of notoriety recently. So it's been a fun trip so far. So. Yeah.
So what attracts you to the aspect of kind of the social interaction of art pieces and like the idea of kind of running into a random installation piece?
Yeah, I think art is definitely an institution. Like, you have to go to an art gallery to look at art, or go to a theater to check out some theater, or a venue to see music. I think with public art, you're faced to interact with it regardless if you want to see it or not. So therefore, like, a perception or an opinion is going to pop up right away. So I think it's cool to have, like with these murals or with my installations, like you're forced to kind of take it in or just leave it behind. So it's kind of like these little love letters left behind sporadically around town that people can take in and create a perception by themselves. So I think it's cool to just have these little keepsakes that people can interpret and use as, good luck charms or whatever throughout the day. So I think it's just cool when things pop up. You don't really know the story behind them, and you perceive them a certain way, and then throughout time, like you build, there's a dialogue that's created, and especially with like the mural tours that we're doing now, where people get to know like more feedback about the walls. And I mean, I think with me, my installations, like I just leave them out. They're made out of cardboard and they just fade away. So maybe there's not a lot of dialogue that's supposed to be made with that, but public art's just about creating dialogue, I think.
So with the mural tours, you guys have been doing those kind of all year round. How is the kind of the turnout for those? Do people, I guess, how many are there actually these days? There's quite an accumulation of them, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have like 24 murals or something like that downtown, and we've been doing these, we've done like several mural tours so far, so we've collaborated with Rainbow Routes on several of them where, between 80 and 100 people show up. And the demographic's pretty interesting because it's like a lot of more experienced, more elderly people that come hang out, and it's always like, oh, what are they going to take in? This might be super bunk, but they've actually asked the most interesting questions so far. So to have all these people come out and be really intrigued by this public art movement downtown and be curious about what we're doing, but then also like explaining the story behind all the murals, because people don't really know what they're about. So to talk about the artists and the meaning behind them, and I think a lot of the comments online are like, these artists come from out of town and just leave and don't care, but a lot of the out of town murals actually take time to get to know people and incorporate Sudbury in their murals. Like case in point, with like the Troy Leviates mural, Trevor Wheatley and Cosmo Dean, the Ellen Peter, Hobbs. It's like they all take the time to reference a lot of Sudbury, and it might not be super obvious in certain of them, but if you take the time to come check out a mural tour, like we'll definitely explain to you those Sudbury little Easter eggs in them.
So is your position as the mural coordinator for up here? How is it kind of welcoming these different artists to the city over the last couple of years and working with them to collaborate on different projects? Yeah,
it's fun because like I invite these artists, but then I think my main job is to make sure they have a good time here as well, because they're here for like a week and a half. But to have these really notable artists come hang out in town and enjoy the festival, enjoy painting, it's really about, that notion of hospitality, but also showing them what Sudbury's about, because some artists have never heard of Sudbury, and some artists have actually been here before, like Trevor Wheatley. Like Trevor went to camp outside of town, and Jarvis, who came to paint this past summer, like his mom's from here, and his grandfather grew up here, went to and spent time in the mines as well. So you actually have these connections, which is really fun. But really, when they come to town, it's about showcasing the city and showing them what it's about. I think one of my favorite stories is when Trevor and Cosmo were in town. Like we went to Tuco's like every night, and then by the end of their stay here, we've been too cultured. Could we just like go watch the baseball game at Sports Bar? So like we went to Boston Pizza as like for them to be like, hey, we've been too humbled by this town. We need a break from how cool this place is. So little things like that, it's always really fun. So.
Is that always really fun to kind of bring somebody in as an outsider and introduce them to your town and the things you love about it?
Yeah.
So in your kind of personal installation pieces, a lot of them are definitely very like nostalgic based. So do you kind of find that you kind of explore that theme because you're one of these kind of people that reminisces about the old days a lot?
I never was until I actually started doing these, where it's always, focusing on improving yourself and being a better person and what's next, what are you going to do next, and stuff like that. So it's been cool to have these conversations with myself about how I was as a kid. Like doing these installations, like the process is the most important part to me, which is, a pretty stereotypical thing to say, but I get to delve into these ideas and these moments that I had as a kid with these objects that I create. So it's like super therapeutic. But it's just, the idea of nostalgia, or like there's been people dub it like, oh, it's these 90s objects. It's just like, yeah, it is 90s, but it's just like that just so happens to be the era I grew up in. It has nothing to do with, to me, like the time or what it is. It's just these are objects that really resonated with me when I was a kid, and I really want to revisit those moments. And yeah, at first glance, these are all like these are commercial objects, from like a giant Blockbusters, VHS cassette thing to a Zeller shopping bag and everything in between, but it's about like taking away that commercial aspect and like putting in the emotional resonance to these pieces. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do.
Well, and especially with the Blockbuster video one, I used to work at Bianco's Movie Center back in the day, through high school and college and university, and I worked there for a long time. So like when the Blockbuster piece came out, it was just like superb memories of having like just the best after school job with my friends, and like rewinding VHSs and just like the mischief we'd get into. And also just like kind of the excitement of like back in the day, like when you were growing up and you would go to the movie store and it would be like exciting to like go pick out whatever you're going to watch that week, right?
Yeah, that's why it's cool to like look back at those moments too. And I mean, these installations are super accessible because everybody has, a moment in time where this object meant a lot to them. So it's cool that as much as these things are really personal to me, it's really interesting that people pick up different like memories for them. So that's why it means a lot to me too. It's not just a personal, ego-driven project. It's also about creating memories or so that people can revisit memories as well at the same time.
Yeah. So something like recreating, like for a perfect example, a giant Blockbuster video VHS or a giant Nintendo cartridge or something. Where do you even start with something like that?
I don't know. You just think about it and you somehow make it. It's cool because like the whole like artistic process, like I'm kind of incorporating a bunch of elements where like, all right, you think of an idea, you have to design it and then paint it and then build it and then photograph it and then edit it on Photoshop in terms of like colors and stuff. So it's just like, it's cool to incorporate all these different aspects of art into like this one project. I feel like I'm a little bit of an architect too, where like you're building these objects and like everything's made out of cardboard and duct tape and like acrylic paint. It's like, there's nothing more to it than that, which is...
So it's installation art, but it's kind of also like temporary art.
Yeah, that's what is great too, of like, I revisit these moments in time and then I build these installations to pay homage to them and then let them go in the streets and that's it, you know. So it's kind of like letting go, like revisiting these memories, but also letting go of them at the same time. So I've had installations where, you know, I go to the Buddha, have a few drinks, walk by and it's like torn up in the corner. Or have an installation that lasts 2 weeks. So it's cool to have these things just, you know, you let go of them where when I was younger, when I was making art, I would hoard everything, collect all these pieces, just keep them. But then to be able to actually let go of them is really fun too. Of like, all right, no more connection to them. It's up to people to decide what they want to do with it. So that's also really motivates me to make it too. Of like being able to spend 10 to 20 hours building something and be like, okay, done, bye, on to the next one.
I'm on to the next thing out of my life.
Yeah.
So what kind of places are you leaving these pieces?
They're mostly like downtown, but it's also spots that really resonated with me as a kid too, like spots where I would, used to go tag or like, bring dates on to look at cool spots. So it's like also like leaving these installations in little bits of downtown that, that were a part of my youth and growing up too. So it's like the whole thesis is about those little nuances in time that you take the time to sit in. And I actually build these installations on the spot for the first time, so I don't build them beforehand. So like I can literally build something that just collapses on itself because it's not like structurally sound. So that's always cool too to, you can spend, an hour on location building something and then it totally falls apart, but you just stick to the plan and keep going.
You're just make it work somehow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So lately you've been kind of getting a lot of notoriety. You've had some big interviews come out. People are throwing lots of names around, calling you Sudbury's Banksy, Sudbury's Warhol, which are definitely very flattering comparisons. But does it kind of create a sense of like pressure to you, or are you fond of the comparison?
There's no pressure. I don't know. It's cool. It's been fun. It's been a fun trip of like, it started off, I submitted to like Boom, which is a pretty prolific website, and then CBC Arts saw that. So getting like pretty big national recognition, then all the local press caught it after that, which is cool. But those comparisons, like it's just, Banksy is that generic term, like that generic name that everybody knows in the street art world, and I think Warhol's pretty cool too. But I mean, these are artists that they're whatever to me. I think it's just comparisons for the sake of comparing, but it's fun nonetheless. It's definitely a compliment. But it's like being a big street art nerd. I'm like, whatever. Like this, at the end of the day, like, it validation's great, but I kind of hate it at the same time. It's like kind of annoying, to talk about it. I would rather just be like, I'm a super low key, mellow dude, and I'd rather just do things on my own terms and leave them be. But I think opportunities to talk about it's great. Like doing little interviews that last 2 minutes is like kind of boring, but doing something like this where I can actually explain it, it's like really rewarding. And on that note, I just want to thank you too, because like you approached me like months ago to do that interview, the creative stuff, and that was before anything really picked up. So like it's cool to have like a local Sudbury press outlet actually contact me before all this stuff happened. So it's like, okay, cool, he got national recognition, now let's like local press contacts him. So it's like, well, I've been doing this for a while, so I just wanted to thank you to, you reached out before anybody else, so that means a lot. So yeah.
Yeah, well, and I mean, that's what the show is all about, is that we kind of, what I really want to do is kind of illustrate a more vibrant picture of what it really is like here in Sudbury. And I mean, I have a really strange relationship with how I kind of fell in love with the city. I didn't grow up here. I grew up on Manitoulin Island. and I moved here as a surly teen. And so I fell in love very backwards with living here. Fought through a lot of angst to get here. And yeah, so I mean, I guess people have so many preconceptions. People kind of feel like they need to escape and go down south in order to do anything with their lives. And I've said this before. I've said this before even on the show. Like, I feel like Sudbury is a sandbox. If there's something that you want to do in Sudbury, you can figure out a way to do it.
Yeah.
And so I guess I just want to kind of like highlight people that are just like, this is what I want to do and I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to make it happen here because this is where I live and I want the betterment of my community. So that's kind of what the show's all about. That was a tangent, but like whatever.
There you go.
So Nico, like obviously you're heavily involved in anything to do with the arts community. So what are kind of some things right now that you feel that the city's really in need of?
I'm gonna say nothing, because I think we have like a really solid scene here, and there's so many things that I've even yet to like attend or like really delve into, but there's so much going on, and we're on an upward thing right now.
Well, yeah. Okay.
Whatever.
So if I were to rephrase, then what are maybe some organizations that you'd want to highlight that you're really excited about the work they're doing?
Yeah, I think I'm really excited to see what's going to go on at Place des Arts. Like, there's all that movement too of, you know, the art gallery and the library, you know, coming together. I think, you know, whatever like the School of Architecture is going to do, I'm always like really stoked about. They've been, you know, me personally, like I put a lot of pressure on them because I don't know what's going on in there, and it's been 4 years now, and yeah, cool, they build their ice huts, but like I want them to do more for the community in terms of like, why don't you guys have pop-up shows and showcase your work? And I understand like being a student's ridiculous and I would never go back, but it'd be cool for them to do more things in terms of like the public sphere and stuff like that, because I mean, you know, you're going to be an architect one day. It'd be cool to see that process instead of seeing the end result. But even like looking at downtown and all these like these storefronts that are opening, all these like art boutiques and stuff like that, it's cool to see people passionate about the local art scene and wanting to make a business out of it, which is really cool too. You know, I think we're in a good place right now. I think, you know, not going to get into it, but the whole arena thing, like that was a blessing. I think it's going to motivate us to really fight for downtown and keep going. And we're in a good spot right now where, you know, there's so many organizations doing their own thing. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about making Sudbury home, and it is, and keeping it that way. And I always say that like Sudbury is like, we're our own best kept secret. You know, like people outside of town don't really know what's going on here, but when you take time to come visit, it's kind of magical. So that's something I hope we keep striving for, and we definitely are. And even the resurgence of like Northern Lights, like last year was absolutely insane. I mean, to me, it was like the best festival of the year, and to know that Max Merrifield is going to keep killing it doing that and keep getting great names and great acts and having a fun time like that festival was absolutely insane, and like hats off to him. And I love the fact that there's this new sense of energy and ownership that we have about this town, and that's definitely what I'm excited about, is rediscovering the city. And like you mentioned, the whole sandbox thing, like we can do whatever we want here, you know, mm-hmm. and that's great. So
it really feels like there's kind of like a new generation coming into their own and kind of trying to shape what they want the city to look like.
Yeah, and it's like, even from like a music perspective, like look at the guys at Murder. Like, yeah, I'm great friends with all of them, but holy shit, like they're just absolutely killing it. Like, you know, they just came back from the East Coast tour, like off to Europe in a few months too. Like they do that every year. You know, Sudbury, like we've had that kind of band show up like every 5 or 7 years. Like you look at Statues and Vicious Cycle and Valge and all that. Like we have those prominent bands that show up every now and then and absolutely like just, you know, can tour the world at any given point. And people don't realize that, like, you can do that here. You know, like, you know, case in point too with myself, it's like, you know, I paint cardboard, you know, that's what I've been doing for the past few months, and, you know, I'm getting, you know, national recognition for it. It's like, it doesn't take, you know, a lot of connections. It just takes that, you know, that motivation to do it. So I hope people, like, especially the younger crew, can like realize that you can do it here, and it's not about making it in town, but it's about creating art that you believe in, and then just putting it out there, and hopefully it picks up. And if not, you just keep going. Man, this is just like cookie cutter stuff, but it does mean a lot. Like, just stick to your guns and do it. Man, I feel so self-conscious preaching this stuff because it's so like Oprah Winfrey stuff, but it's true though.
So, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
So we're going to close this out. We're going to move into a little bit of music, and then we'll go on to our next segment, our Creator Conversations questions, and our Hot Jam Sandwich. All right, so that was our first segment with Nico Glode, talking a little bit about his installation projects. And we'll also get a little bit more into some of the Up Here murals that he's been working on over the years. So this is a little bit of a throwback episode. So I decided to really just drive the theme home. So first off, in our first set of music, we have I Don't Need Anyone by a little band that you might have heard of before called Soul Decision. Then we're going to have Baby Boo by Sugar Jones. That might seem like a little bit of a strange pick, but later on we're going to play another factory-made band that was created on a reality show, and Sugar Jones is one of them, if you remember. I think the show was called Popstar, and they created basically what was supposed to be like the new Spice Girls, and it obviously didn't go that great. Coming up right after that, a pretty locally nostalgic one, Raining Bullets from Far From Heroes. If you were at the Townhouse 30th anniversary kind of little street festival thing that they did this summer, they played on the Saturday night, and it was a packed house. Everyone was so excited to see them, and just reliving all their high school, their teenage, younger years fantasies. So we're going to go into our first set of music. We have Soul Decision, Sugar Jones, and Far From Heroes. Hey, thanks for tuning into Creator Conversations. I bet you're expecting some music right now. Turns out copyright laws even apply to us. So check below in the description for all the links for the music that we would have played this episode, and you can always follow us on Spotify to keep up to date with our playlists. All right, so we are going into our second half of the show here on Creator Conversations on CKLU. This is, again, your host, Jess from Our Creator. So if you go to ourcreator.com, that is www.ourcrater.com. Here are a few of the headlines that you can read up on right now. So we have our most recent edition of Creator Conversations, our fourth episode, where we interviewed Sean McLaren, and we talked to him all about being a stand-up comedian in Sudbury, and his most recent project, THC Positive, that he's been working on for the last couple of years. This is an entirely homegrown stoner vampire comedy horror. So why not check it out? Why not? So you're going to find out so many details about that if you listen to the interview. Sean is, he talks a lot. He's got lots to say. And why not? He's been working on it for so long. And you get a little bit of an insight into where he came up with that crazy character, Aunt Zelda. And if you've ever been to one of the Dirty Bingo events, I once went to one and I won the jackpot, and I said something I absolutely cannot say on air. So that's the kind of night you're in for. Then after that, you can find out an update on Greater Sudbury's food strategy. We've also got lots of content up on the site, giving you an update on what's going on with the Wolves this season. So you can always stay up to date on that. We also have a new contribution. So this is a new monthly article we're going to have called Sudbury Storytellers. This is one of our collaborations with the Greater Sudbury Public Library. So we have an interview with local author Anne Paquette. And she's going to talk to us all about a book that she's written most recently. And then you can find out lots more about Sudbury Wolves. And if you go way down to the bottom, one of the last articles we have up is one of our top 5 articles. And this time we rounded up your top 5 Instagram hotspots in the city. So these are some places that you can definitely check out. We have coming up our next segment with Nico. This is our Creator Conversation segment. So this is kind of where we do a few random choice kind of questions. We ask a few of the Creator Conversations questions that you'll be able to answer yourself on business cards that you can find. Right now you can find them at Old Rock. And then we go into our Hot Jams of the Week. So we will be right back after we talk a little bit more with Nico. We are back on CKLU with Nico Glode. So we're going to go into our Creator Conversations questions, then our Hot Jam Sandwich. But before we get into that, we have a few other questions we want to ask for you. So you just got back from traveling to Ottawa and where you're working on a mural. Can you tell us a little bit more about the project you were working on?
Yeah, so I was contacted by ACFO, which is a French organization in Ottawa, to come paint a mural. So I painted this high school in Nepean. So I did like these giant air fresheners, like I did 7 of them each of them were like between 12 and 8 feet. But instead of it saying like Royal Pine or Peachy Peach, like the sense of them, I did like French terms of endearment. So for the high school students, so it's like a moment to reflect and to refresh.
So if you were to picture this is like one of those air fresheners, like the little tree air
yeah,
freshener
like that you have in your cars or something.
Car.
Like for me, it was like my grandfather had a bunch in his basement, so that was like kind of like a nostalgia thing for me. So it was like incorporating that, like my personal thing of like nostalgia and bringing it up for the students. And we took all these terms that like some students submitted to them. I came up with a few too. So it was cool to do like this. I'm French, I'm francophone, so it was cool to like do an homage to my heritage, and also do a mural in Ottawa, which is super dope. So it was like the first time I painted a mural outside of town. So that was a really cool experience, and it was really fun.
How do you kind of get into an opportunity to travel to do a mural like this?
I think like it's about like, just making work and doing things and getting things out there. Like I look, especially at Sudbury, because with up here, like we have the Power Up project where we get local artists to paint electrical boxes. Like that's a good avenue to help create something that's not just on canvas or that's going to be in an art gallery. It's about creating public art. So I think especially when it comes to murals and the notion of public art, it's like you can just go out and do that. Like you can, it's becoming more and more accessible too, especially in Sudbury, to go to a local business owner and be like, hey, I want to paint your wall. Like let's make that happen. Or like case in point, myself, I could just leave these installations out for the public. So I think it's about building that portfolio and showcasing people that you have a cool style, a cool niche, and you want to say something, and then hopefully something comes from that. So it's just been spend a few years painting murals in town and stuff, and then outside sources are getting a hold of me to do stuff for them. So it's about committing that that ever notion of just committing to your craft, and hopefully things turn out. So.
Do you have a particular piece that you've worked on that really sticks out to you, or maybe that got a really surprising response?
I think like two of my favorite murals that I've done, they're where like the brewery lofts are and where like the Anywhere Creator Space used to be. I did a mural called Hattie Met Hello, which like these 2 like tin cans, and it's about like when you're a kid talking through them, and just the notion of like a conversation could start with hello. And then myself and Andrew Knapp did a mural like right down the street called This Too Will Change. So we did like those 2 murals almost like 2 months apart from each other, and it was just cool to like, we were both going through like some hard times, so it was cool to paint these murals that were like super personal for us. And those are 2 murals that really mean a lot to me, of having these little diaries on this wall that people can interpret, but also like have really stronger meanings to me. And it's always cool to walk by and revisit those memories, and to realize how far you've come. So that's pretty cool to have like these little like these permanent murals on these walls as constant reminders of that degenerate that you used to be and all your past mistakes, but to take the time to realize that you've become a better person. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite mural that you've worked on for up here?
Whoa. Okay. Probably like the Troy Lovegates mural, like at the YMCA. Troy Lovegates is like one of my like all-time idols. I've still spent a lot of time looking at trains. I think all my friends really know me for that. So I've seen Troy's work on trains for years and years now, and when the festival came up, I was able to get a hold of him to come paint. So he's a Canadian icon, a total legend, and to be able to hang out with an idol for a week and a half is always pretty great. So I think to me for that, that's like the best moment I've ever had, especially it being the first year of the festival and all that. So that was super cool. Yeah.
Are there any muralists that you absolutely dream of bringing into the city?
Yeah. So there's this guy called Steve Powers. He goes by Espo. He does this project called the Love Letters. If you ever catch me having a pint at the Buddha, I'll probably be reading one of his books. He's an absolute legend. He does like these awesome terms of endearment on walls and stuff like that. There's this duo called Fail out of New York, which do some super cool stuff, like almost like comic book collage stuff. Maya Hayuk does like these really cool colored pattern Ukrainian based murals. I mean, the list can really go on and on. There's always these artists that show up that I really obsess over, but the dream is always to hopefully bring one of those, that kind of caliber artists. Like, not that we haven't, but always bring in those big names to come to town, and, even to look back and see that, Ellen Peter came to town the second year of our festival, and they have the world record for the world's biggest mural, and they wanted to come here. They actually submitted, like, nobody reached out to them, and a cool little story. I remember I was at the Buddha reading. Yeah, I mentioned the Buddha a lot, but I was at the Buddha reading this magazine called VNA, which is a art magazine out of Europe, and reading an interview with Ellen Peter. And then Christian called me up saying do you know who Ellen Peter is? And I was literally reading an interview with them. So to have these really prolific artists come to town is always pretty cool. So.
Do you have any projects that you're working on coming up?
I think just continuously just doing these installations, because the feedback's been really great so far. There's nothing that works immediate right now. I think I just take the time to keep working on stuff and exploring different themes and things, and things have been really I've been really humbled recently by everything going on, but I think it's just you take that for what it is and then just keep going, keep doing the work, and then hopefully things keep going. And then up here we're going to start working on that super shortly too, and submissions should be open up shortly for murals and artists and stuff like that. So definitely suggest people to submit, and so definitely excited to get working on that again.
So speaking of up here, what is kind of your favorite part? I know it's probably a bit of a hurricane for you guys while it's all happening, but what's kind of one of your favorite aspects of being in the center of the whole thing?
Yeah, I think definitely my favorite part is whatever venue I'm at during the festival is to take the time while a band's performing and actually put my back towards them and look at the crowd and see everybody smiling. That's something that's it means a lot of hey, we were a group of people that decided to do this in town, and we kind of did it. And to see hundreds upon hundreds of Sudburians just really appreciate it. If it's 3,000 people on Durham Street watching Tribe Called Red, or a couple hundred people at Fuse watching Deerhoof, it's always cool to see people nerd out over it, and that's what keeps us going, because this is explicitly a festival about Sudbury and for Sudbury, because we were just we just started because we wanted to, and we did it. So we can't help but feel that support from the city, because it wouldn't be worth it if it wasn't for this town. So
is there any advanced news you can share with our listeners for Up Here season 4?
Nothing, literally.
Still recovering from last year.
Still recovering, but no, we're gonna start working on things super shortly. We still got to do a little bit of a sit down and recap about last year and things to work on, but it's going to be bigger and better coming up for next August as well. So it's going to be really fun.
Yeah. So we're going to get into our creator conversations questions. These can be stumpers.
Okay.
So give it a try though.
Yeah.
Who would you say is your favorite Sudburian?
Are
you gonna get in trouble now?
No, I'll give a shout out to my good friend John Danilou for Murder. He's been somebody that I could always count on for good talks about everything and anything. That guy means a lot to me. So yeah, thanks. Thanks, John. And your birthday was yesterday, and we had a lot of fun. So. Yeah, you're the. I feel like I'm doing a love letter to John right now, but no, I think John's the man, and even everybody too. I can name 15 to 20 people off the top of my head, but the fact that at any given moment you can have a really good conversation with your friends in town, if it's about art or life or love or whatever, everybody's really appreciated. So yeah, I guess moment right now, my boy John, that guy's the man. But any given moment, anybody can take over his seed. So I'm looking at you guys to take it over, but
play your cards right.
Play your cards right, and you guys can be at his spot. But no, I think there's a really good crew of people here, and I'm really fortunate to have really great friends.
What would you say is Sudbury's signature dish?
Probably like Buddha pizzas. I'll go the holy cow with 2 sour creams. That's my jam all the time. It's was it 3 different cheeses with pepperoni? It's such an easy pizza, but it's always so good. That's definitely been my jam for a very long time. Obviously, Townhouse Burgers, Deluxe fries. You can go to Deluxe, get that cheeseburger dinner with the chocolate milkshake. That's really up there. It's definitely a spot that I bring muralists to every year to go to Deluxe. So that greasy, those carbs. I mean, you can't really go wrong with that.
We don't believe in Atkins here.
No, absolutely not. It's just like, hey, I'm gonna have 3 pints of beer and down this pizza, and I feel pretty good.
Is there one particular building, if you had to pick, or a landmark around the city that you would love to paint a mural on?
Smokestack, water tower. I mean, logistically, I have no idea how we can do that, but I think it would be super cool. Or even like a soccer field type thing.
Really cool.
Yeah, I think it's just like, it's not even about what we would end up painting, it's just like the actual building itself. I think painting the smokestack would be absolutely insane. Like making it look like a giant popsicle or something. I don't know. I can't think of a concept right now, but definitely a water tower.
Like a rocket pop?
A rocket pop, which might be an installation coming up soon, by the way. But I definitely think the smokestack or the water tower.
Well, now it's going to be installation coming up.
No, it will be. But I think those would be super cool, just as a sick thing to do. But I have no idea how we'd pull that off. But yeah.
All right. Well, you got to dream big.
Got to dream big, or else, year 5, we're painting all the big landmarks in town. Yeah.
Our last segment here is our hot jam sandwich. So this is one of my favorite segments where we kind of get to hear a little bit about what you're listening to, or maybe a song that you think that our listeners should check out. So Nico, what are your hot jams for the week?
Yeah, I gotta go like old school with this track. It's by this group called People Under the Stairs. The track's called San Francisco Nights. So this is a track off this Graph documentary called Piece by Piece that my brother and I would like listen to obsessively when we were kids. So it's one of those, it's a cool summer jam that, hits you like a nice summer breeze and just motivates you to go out and do some work. And it's a cool track that I listen to and think about my brother a lot. He's overseas right now, in school and shit. So it's cool to listen to that and think about us as high school kids just going out in the streets and, painting our name and stuff. So it's a cool little nostalgic track to listen to. And then second track, it's by Bad Bad Not Good and Charlotte Day Wilson. Track's called In Your Eyes. Like really sexy jazz beats. Charlotte's voice is just so effortless, and Bad Bad Not Good is just such a tight jazz quartet. So I would listen to that, and I don't know, that might be a bit of a sneak peek for stuff that might happen up here next summer. I don't know.
We can be hopeful.
Maybe we can just wait and see, or just listen to this track and hopefully you dig it. So. Yeah.
Well, we talked in advance about doing kind of nostalgic songs, and unfortunately my nostalgic songs are a lot more embarrassing. So, I don't know if you remember this show, like when reality shows first came out.
Okay.
There was a show called Make the Band.
Yeah.
And this is where this band came from. This is the best band in the world, O-Town. And they have this really great educational song called Liquid Dreams.
True.
And it's, if you've listened to it like as an adult, it's actually outrageous how many of the people that they reference are still desirable now.
But even that video, it's like these women are like weird holographic silver liquid. It's like, what's going on
and
here?
They're just splashing it around.
O-Town does have that one track that's super good. What is it like? It's like a live performance thing, very heartfelt. Sometimes it comes to my head, I just sing it. I'm not going to sing it right now because I know it word for word, but O-Town's no joke. Like, I'll give a shout out to like Soul Decision. Man, that band was amazing when you were growing up as a kid. You're just like, man, I want to be a pop star and look like Brad Pitt one day so I can be successful. So.
Yeah, I remember being really obsessed. Like, this is like boy band hipster style.
Totally. Yeah.
There was a band, I think it was called Westlife.
Yo, yeah, absolutely.
That I really liked.
No, they did a cover of Uptown Girl, which was so sick.
The reason that I fell in love with them is because Kellogg's had like during the time of all the boy bands really tried to capitalize on it, and so they gave out like a CD of like
True, yeah, that's so sick.
And the box that I got had the Westlife CD on it.
Oh man, it's like I wish that was still a thing. Like awful boy bands from the 90s who are actually so good. So good. Man. Production wise, man, those songs are great. Like my friends and I would just like drive around and we still listen to that stuff, or late nights, we're like, let's just listen to bad 90s pop. And it's like, what do you mean bad 90s pop? This is amazing.
It's the greatest.
It's so good.
I drive around to NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys.
Yeah, absolutely.
CDs in my car all the time.
That's such a given. And it's cool to like
Shania.
To go back to old tracks of like, wait, this song, what is this again? Then you have to like you have to Google real hard. Like, you'll know like one lyric and then you're like, oh man, that's Lifehouse or something, that's 98 Degrees shit. That's
Bewitched.
Like, that's Bewitched, Then you're like, okay, cool, wait, this was like on an episode of this show, so let's watch this show now. And then you binge it and you're like, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, where did the time go? Because you're a nerd and you love that 90s corny stuff.
And you just really gave into your nostalgia for a second.
and it was actually 5 hours. And
it was like, 5 hours, and all of a sudden I'd built a big giant cardboard stuffed with duct tape.
Yeah. Wow, full circle on that one. That's art right there. That's
art.
90s corny pop plus Shania Twain plus Bewitched equals, duct tape cardboard installations. I think we figured it out.
All right, so stay away from 90s pop, kids.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
All right, Nico. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us, and we will talk to you again probably closer to up here.
Cool. Thank you so much.
And that was our last segment with Nico. So we picked a few of our hot jams, for better or for worse, for some of us. So Nico's first pick is San Francisco Nights by People Under the Stairs. My pick in the middle, a little more embarrassing, is Liquid Dreams by O-Town. And then to round the segment out, we have In Your Eyes by Bad Bad Not Good and Charlotte Day Wilson. So we hope you'll listen into that, and we will be back shortly to send you off into your night.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to Creator Conversations. I bet you're expecting some music right now. Turns out copyright laws even apply to us. So check below in the description for all the links for the music that we would have played this episode, and you can always follow us on Spotify to keep up to date with our playlists.
And that is it for this week's edition of Creator Conversations. We hope you'll stay tuned in to CKLU 96.7. We'll be back bright and early at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning with LU Mornings. You can stay tuned in until noon if you're daring and listen to Soundjack Radio with DJ Jackie Pashley, also known as Baseline Jack. We always love to listen to her show. And we will be back next week. We will be talking to a cosplayer, Brittany McNamara. You might also know her as Captain Grayson. And that is it for us tonight. We are signing off, and we will catch you again next week on Sunday at 10 o'clock. Remember as well, if you want to listen to a past episode or maybe you want to re-listen to this episode, you can always catch us on SoundCloud. If you go to www.ourcreator.com, you can keep an eye out for the link there. We'll talk to you again next week on CKLU.